I've got 10 3-color commanders that don't get nearly as much love as they deserve, and you are looking for your next commander because you're tired of the same old, same old. Plus, I'll tell you which is my pick for best of the best on this list. Okay, good. Love you. Welcome back to SADGIC the Gathering. I am your esteemed host. And it's finally time. You've been asking me, you've been hounding me, you've been accosting me on the street, you're sneaking into my home, you've been putting dead fish in my car. Stop doing that, by the way. Begging me for another underrated commanders video. So let's do it. I have picked 10 3-color commanders, one for each combo. But in order to be on this list, they had to meet certain parameters that I made up. First, they can't be in the top 12 most popular commanders for that color combo, according to EDHREC, thus making them underappreciated, overlooked, and underrated. Second, they have to be commanders that leave room for sort of an open-ended, more creative build rather than a very limited doing one thing type of deck. That one's a little more loosey-goosey, but you'll pick up the vibe as we go along. And lastly, I just kind of have to think they're neat. For Abzan, we're starting off strong with Narci, Fable Singer. I will gladly go out on a limb here and say that this is the most fun enchantment deck I've ever played. And here is why. Oh, hang on. Don't leave. Yeah. No, come back. Yeah. Well, because they got mad at us last time. You left too early. They were trying to read. They were trying to see what you did, and you left. So can you, come back. Just stay right there. Okay. They're going to love it. It's great. Anyway, unlike other enchantment decks, Narci really only wants you to run sagas, but you can still run your classic enchantment kit, with your card draw and your protection and your cheapeners. All that still does great in this deck. Part of what makes this deck so fun is the different kinds of sagas you can include. Every turn, you're doing something different and exciting, and there's multiple things going off at the same time. You're removing stuff, you're drawing cards, you're placing counters. It's just a lot going on, but it never feels overwhelming. It never feels like too much to keep track of because sagas are pretty linear. It just feels like every turn you get to do a lot. You get to stack so much gameplay, and it's just so refreshing and so dynamic. And you know how when you run like a +1/+1 counter deck, you kind of feel like a Keystone Cop with like the Benny Hill thing where you're like running around trying to put counters on everything. Did I put counters on this turn? Okay, these can attack. You don't run into that at all. Even though you are putting counters on a lot of stuff, again, it feels so linear and so approachable while a lot is happening. It's totally viable. And congrats, you get some life drain, some life gain, and some ungated card draw. And no shade to Tom Bombadil, but I do think that this is the most fun you can have with sagas. For Bant, we have Gorion, Wise Mentor. I really love decks that utilize a lot of commons and uncommons and make them feel powerful and essential and useful. And Gorion totally does that with adventures. Obviously, Gorion wants you to just play a ton of adventures, but I think the fact that the adventures themselves are so varied in this deck that each hand is going to bring something new and exciting and compelling to want to keep exploring and playing. 3 mana is very doable, and it's in very accessible colors. And there's no once per turn baloney, which is such a breath of fresh air nowadays. Honestly, with enough momentum and setup, I think this deck can become really formidable really fast. I think this is the more fun adventure commander over Balluna because Temur can suck it. Up next, Temur. Just kidding. Up next for Esper is Elenda and Azor. I will almost always tell you to pick a commander that's 5 CMC or cheaper, but there are some exceptions. And this commander is one of them because I truly believe that this is such a stellar springboard for a really powerful strategy. The only thing about this commander to consider is that it does require a bit of setup. And I think that's fair because once it is firing on all cylinders and gets its legs under it, it's going to go hard in the paint and push you into archenemy territory really fast. Any card that says at each end step, that's going to cause some problems. Elenda and Azor is such a devious combination of life gain, card draw, and tokens. Your Consecrated Sphinx, your Teferi's Ageless Insight, and your instant card draws are going to really pay off here. I think this deck can definitely get expensive fast, so be careful there. But even with a few decent pieces in here, I think this deck wins games pretty often. You get an army of attack-ready tokens, a handful of cards, and a big life total at your upkeep. You can do pretty much anything you want. For that reason, I think that this commander may be the best of the best on this list. For Grixis, we have Tetsuo, Imperial Champion. This commander is such a sick coalescence of two really powerful strategies: equipment and spell slinging. These colors give you access to such good instants and sorceries with Izzet and Black thrown in there. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of sick of having to run Boros if I want an equipment deck. I don't know why, but Tetsuo feels like he's fallen way further under the radar than he should have. And that just feels like a shame to me. And I think the haters will say, oh, that's because it only triggers on attacks and it has to be on him. But I think he's pretty fair for what he does. I mean, you're going to be swinging big with an equipped creature, getting free instants and sorceries, targeting stuff, and on everyone else's turns, you're going to be doing a ton of control. It's just such a unique deck strategy that I feel like more people need to give a shot. And the art and the vibe is just so top tier. For Jeskai, we have the Archimandrite. This commander deck wants to do a lot. You've got life gain, you've got card draw, you've got a go wide attack effect, and 3 kinds of tribal support. It's a really cool deck, and I feel like it's actually pretty balanced. I feel like depending on the type of creatures you include, this deck can become a really big problem for your opponents. There are definitely some great advisors and artificers you should include, but this deck wants monks. It yearns for the monk. And especially with all the amazing monks that just got released in Tarkir Dragonstorm, load this thing up, man. Again, this deck is such a good example of open-ended, creative, unique deck building. If you want to go more token heavy, do that. If you want to do the life gain thing, focus on that. It's great. It's one of my favorite toolkit commanders for sure. Up next, Jun brings us one of the most diabolical, one of the most devious, most dastardly commanders. It's Mr. Orfeo. You know that buddy of yours that acts like this?
Wait, SpongeBob! We're not cavemen! We have technology!
This one is for him. This deck wants one thing: blood. But it's way more fun than you might think. Having played against this deck a bunch, I feel like its simplistic nature sort of becomes this fun, spectacular countdown to who's going to get bonked by Orfeo. And I think you'll be surprised that your opponents will start rooting for you as this thing amasses so much power. They want to know and see how this is going to go, even if they're kind of a little afraid. You may not think it at first, but this deck is actually really instant and sorcery heavy. You include a ton of until end of turn effects, and you just have these big, splashy, fun, punchy combats. The world would have you believe this is a Gruul deck. It is not. This deck wants Yargholan Multani. People will underestimate you if you run this to their own demise. Up next for Mardu is Shanid, Sleeper's Scourge. First of all, sickest name. Second of all, Legends Matter in Mardu does incredibly well here. I think I found that the insane chasm of 5-color Legends Matter decks can get overwhelming and it can get a little nebulous. I think I'm okay with the ambiguity of a broad Legends Matter deck if you limit the colors a little bit more. It's finding that balance between creativity and openness, but also knowing what you want to do with your deck. And I think Shanid really does that perfectly. Giving everything menace on the battlefield is insanely underrated and insanely hard to contend with. I think what really makes this cool is the inclusion of legendary lands in Shanid's second ability. I think Mardu usually doesn't get the opportunity to do fun stuff with lands, and here you can. This deck feels like a less predictable place to take Mardu, and I really like how scrappy and oppressive this commander feels. Don't sleep on the Sleeper Scourge. For Naya, we have Mazzy Star, Fade Into You. I feel like this is the front-to-back aura strategy that will really pop off and reward you more than most. Her first ability is a nice little sweetener where you can kind of juice up your own dudes. But I like that it can become really political because you can enchant your other opponent's stuff and say, hey, I'll make your guys big as long as you don't attack me. I love cards that give you that political option or that sort of game within a game mentality. And I think it just outright makes you more formidable. But her second ability is absolutely what I feel like elevates this to be the aura commander. Instead of your auras just vanishing as soon as any of your creatures vanish, you get a chance to bring them back and re-equip them. It just solves the problem of losing auras too quickly. I just feel like it allows you to keep momentum and build your board in a way that lets you stay in the game rather than your deck and your board just flying out the window. Mazzy is the main reason I've ever been tempted to create an aura deck. She's super cool. For Sultai, you know I picked my boy Felix Five-Boots. I'm gonna say it.
I don't care that you broke your elbow.
I know he's kind of a meme with the 5 boots rule 0 thing, but I genuinely think this commander is worth your time and worth exploring. So many cards say when you deal combat damage, which makes this deck so much fun to build. You can include so many different cards and do so many different things with it that just makes it such a fun place for creative deck builders to go. You can go big with it and include some big legendary creatures that have huge triggers, or you can just stack a ton of little stuff and double up small abilities to kind of create a little engine there. And yes, I know it's only on your turn and only if you deal combat damage, but include stuff that your opponents don't want to block, double up those triggers, profit. Lastly on this list for Teamer can suck. Lastly on this list for Teamer, we have Riku of Many Paths. On this channel, you've likely heard me talk about how obsessed I am with cards that give you a lot of options. I use the word modality a lot because I want you to think I'm smart. I, along with most Commander players, think that including cards that give you a lot of options make the game more accessible and make you more successful as you play your deck. And I think that's why Riku is kind of king here. Loading your deck up with so many modal spells is just going to give you a ton of options to do something amazing on every turn. You're always going to have an answer. I like to think of this commander as sort of the utility belt commander. You can get creatures, you can get impulse draw, you can get counters, you can get protection. There's always going to be an answer or a way through. And like I've said with other commanders on this list, it's a great place to include commons and uncommons that get overlooked that can really thrive and win you games. In a game designed to maximize fun and maximize your ways to play, this feels like the answer to that. I think this commander will take you to some pretty dynamic and exciting places. And that is the list. What do you think? Would you build one of these? Have you built one of these? Have you seen success with any of these commanders? Let me know in the comments. I genuinely want to hear your experiences with some of these commanders. As always, thank you guys so much for watching and commenting, liking, subscribing. You make this fun, and I love doing these videos. So let me know what you want to see next, and follow SADGIC for more magic. See you next time.